Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. So we've got an upcoming project that's going to require some lathe work. It's actually going to be kind of a little production job, I guess you would call it, in that I got to make multiple pieces on the lathe that are basically the same. It's not going to be a big production run, but I do have several of a piece that I need to make. And to make that job a little bit easier, what I'm wanting to do is devise a carriage stop to use on the Lodge and Shipley lathe that we have out here at the museum. Now, I thought that we had a carriage stop for this machine, but upon searching and looking and digging high and low, I can't seem to find one anywhere. And I think that I may be confusing one that I used to have for a different lathe than for one that actually fits this machine. But regardless, I can't put my hands on it, so we're going to make a carriage stop, and that's going to be the topic of this particular video. So I've also, in this job that I got coming up, I actually need to be able to basically bring my carriage up to some certain places and be able to go back to those same places each time without having to making a lot of measurements, just to speed the process up. But I need to be able to have multiple stops rather than just a single stop. So most carriage stops, you'll mount it on here and it'll have just a stop that you just kind of run this thing up to a point, boom, it won't go any farther, and you're on your mark. What I need to do is have one that I can have multiple stops, multiple distances. And I saw a carriage stop a while back in a video that Mr. Pete had, Tublicane. If you watch his videos and a job he was doing, I just happened to notice it, and I said, that's kind of neat. And when I was thinking about this, I recalled that and actually went back and looked at his video. And I'm going to make one in the spirit of the one that Mr. Pete had. I don't know if that's one that was commercially made or one that he made himself. I don't know, but just looking at it in the video, I was able to get a good idea of how it was built, and that's what we're going to basically do on this. And you'll get to see that design as we move forward in here. So to start out with, I've just got a block of steel. Let's get a measure this. All right, so this is just right off the scrap bin, length, width, everything. So this is about 1.5 inches thick. It's 3 inches wide, and it's a little over 5.25 inches long. The length on this really doesn't matter. And again, this is just a piece of scrap. It's what we had sitting on the scrap bin, and I'm just going with it. So basically what I'm going to do is we're going to cut a notch out in here that will fit over the top of this little V way on here. So this is a 90-degree V, 45 off each side, and we're going to make a piece that will sit down on top of that, fit right down over the edge of here, and there'll be a block that'll go up underneath the bottom that will clamp up, and it will clamp this block into place where you can slide this up and down on here wherever you want to. And then we'll have some studs coming out of here that we can adjust. And again, I've got a plan. I haven't drawn it out. I'm just going to build it, so you'll have to kind of follow with me. But we'll actually be able to have 3 different depths and be able to choose which one we want to use as we're doing the different stopping distances on the lathe. So anyway, this is the plan, and let's get started with it. So I asked Charles Marlin to draw this up in SolidWorks so you guys could kind of see what the end results would look like. And of course, he did an excellent job for me. He even did a little model here of showing it work. But as you can see, the little slots in the top there will allow those arms to go in that will bend down. And the end result is that you end up with 3 separate stops that you can stop your carriage on, and depending on which one of the arms is down. Of course, the one that's in the body itself will be the shortest one, and then the 2 longer ones will be on the arms that drop down. And the little clamp at the bottom down there clamps the top of the 90-degree piece to the actual ways on the lathe, and you end up with a nice multi-stop carriage stop. So the first step I needed to do was kind of get some measurements in a rough draw. And so I went over and kind of measured the little V-way on the lathe itself, and I got some measurements off of it, just chicken scratch here, and then basically drew out the opposite of that on this block. So what I need to mill out of the block, and again, I got some rough dimensions on there. It's not a full-blown mechanical drawing or anything, but it's enough for me to work off of. And from that, I went over and actually laid it out on my piece of stock here. So I don't know if you can see the lines in there or not with the lighting in here, but I just used some die chem, marked all this up, and using my measurements, I came in here and you know, scratched on here the different dimensions I needed. So I knew what size this area in here needs to be taken out. And then for my 45-degree angles, I just used my combination square here. And was able to lay those lines out. So now I've got basically what I need to mill out of the block. But before I actually take it to the milling machine, instead of trying to mill all this out on the mill, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to the bandsaw, and I'm going to rough this shape out and just leave enough material in there to clean up so that it'll be a fairly easy job on the mill, and we'll let the bandsaw remove most of the stock there. All right, so we've got the shape roughly roughed out on here now on the bandsaw. And what we're going to do is come in here with a big end mill and just kind of clean this thing up in the different directions. And to do that, I'm actually going to do it on my horizontal mill. And the main reason being is that this is a big end mill. I think this is 1 3/4 inches or so in diameter. It has 1.5 inch shank. And this end mill, I just don't have a 1.5 inch holder to use on my vertical mill, but I can, using one of my 50 taper holders here, hold this end mill on the horizontal mill. So and two, it's nice to be able to clamp this piece of work down to the table and really see what you're doing. It's right there in front of you. So I think this is going to be a good way to do it. So we'll go ahead and get this put on the machine and get to milling. All right, show you guys where I'm at on the setup now. Because the table on this mill will only go up to about right in here, it really won't allow me to get the whole face of this. So what I've done is I've actually jacked the part up on some steel blocks. And that just basically gives me the clearance I need to go up and down. I've ran into that problem before when I need to face something off. The table just won't go up high enough to do that. So we have to raise our project up to accomplish that. And to start off with, what I want to do is I want to get a nice square 90-degree cut back here on the back. This will go up flush with the side of that, the V blocks, or the V groove, which would be up here, but I need a good machine surface in here, and I need for this to be 2 inches from the back. So I've got this set up, and you know, I'm just indicated in and out, running the table in and out here on the top face of this piece of stock. And this is just some cold roll steel, so that's not a perfectly machined surface by any means to indicate off of, but I've got it running within a couple of thousandths, and I'm going to call that good enough. And that'll give me a new reference place in here that I can work off of when I start milling out my 45-degree slot. So this is pretty much ready to go. I've got my end mill in place. We're going to come in here, we're going to clean up the back side here, and we'll just get going. All right, so I'm going to come in here and just kind of touch off on this so that I get a good cut. raise my table up so I'm cutting on the back side of this and bring my table into the right depth. That's right on my mark, just eyeballing the mark there. So we'll bring this all the way down, and I'm going to just feed the table in a couple more thousandths to make sure I'm getting a good clean cut. So I'm moving the table in this way, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed the cut by raising the table up, and we'll use the automatic feed for that. And let's see, I'm going to go about 2 1/8 inches per minute on my feed. The speed right now is running about 650 RPMs, and lock my table down. We should be ready to go here. And we're feeding up. All right, well, it's getting some sparks on there. I think I'm had my speed going a little bit too fast for this, so we're gonna slow it down to 322 RPMs and see what this does. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Tell you what, I'm gonna get the cool mist going on this. All right, we've got the cool mist going now, and slowed the spindle down just a little bit more to about 250 RPM. And let's see what she looks like now. All right, guys, I want to get you in here. We can kind of see my method that I'm using here to get this thing running now, where the V's in here will be at 45 degrees. And obviously I'm going to be milling with a cutter that's at 90 degrees, but since this is 90 degrees in this V, we just need to tilt this out to 45 degrees. So as a reference, what I'm using is a cylinder square. I have showed this tool before. It comes in very handy for a lot of different setups, and this is a prime example here because I'm really wanting to measure square off the back of the upright here on the milling machine as my reference point to get this thing kind of roughed in on. We're going to indicate on this before it's all said and done, but right now I'm just trying to get it as close as possible, and I'm going to use this cylinder square. Again, it's got a magnet on the bottom, and this cylinder is perfectly square with the rest of it. So now I've got a little 45 degree reference square here that I can come in here and put up against that. And I don't know if you can see that in the video. You probably can't because you really need to look straight down on it, and I can't get the camera there. But you can look at this gap in here and see where you're at, and I can see that, you know, it's not quite there. So I'm gonna take my hammer, my little brass hammer here, copper hammer, and I'm just gonna tap this around until I see that gap in there disappear. And that's getting pretty darn close right in there. Let me get in here where I can see this a little bit better. All right, that's pretty darn close. I'm going to clamp it down right here, and we'll get the indicator out next and try to indicate off of that. All right, guys, I have been pretty successful in the past with just lining things up over that cylinder square and having them getting angles and stuff lined up pretty good. But I wanted to verify it, so, and I'm not crazy about this setup, but it does more or less confirm that I got it where I want it. So what I've done is I'm using that same 45 square, and I'm just using my cylinder square, the magnet on my cylinder square here, to hold it in place. And I've got that registered up against that back angle in there. You really can't see it because it's covered up, but that's holding it in place. And now I've got a straight edge coming off the back of there at 90 degrees to the table that I can run in and out. And I can just come in here now, and you can look on there, and you know, okay, I may have a thousandth of an inch over the course of an inch there being out. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. I can probably dicker around with this and maybe get it a little bit closer, but for what I'm doing, I think a thousandth over an inch is going to be more than adequate to be right where I need for it to be. So we're going to go with that and go ahead and mill out the rest of that V now. All right, we're ready to make our next cut now, and I've already come in here and got this cutter where it should come right into this corner. And what I did was I kind of fed it down and raised the table up, and you know, I'm just eyeballing that. It's not a super critical measurement, but I want to get this edge as close into this corner as I can, at least on my scribed line. And looking at the width of this cutter, it's almost just right. But what I'm going to have to do is go down this one side, and then I'm going to have to move the table in just a little bit to actually clean up this back side, and hopefully we can go straight down again and side mill going down the side, and that should get us that 90-degree angle in there that we're looking for. So we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead. You know, we saw that last cut. We had a little bit of it was getting a little bit hot from some sparks, and I think this end mill is probably a good candidate for getting resharpened. This was a used end mill that I picked up somewhere, and I haven't ever done any resharpening on it. It's cutting fine, but it could use a good sharpening. So we're just going to flood it down with some cool mist again, and that seemed to work pretty good last time. All right, let's start feeding. So we didn't quite clean up the back side of this, which I didn't think we would. So I fed the table in about 10 more thousandths, and we're gonna let it roll through there again and try to get that back edge cleaned up. We're right on the scribed line here on the front. I'm real happy with that. And we're really close on that back side. All right, so you can kind of guys see how this turned out. You can see the notch that I put in there. The machining came out really good. I got one little place there and one little place there where it didn't quite clean up the bandsaw marks, but we've got real good contact all the way across there. And when you put this down on here, that just fits down on there just really, really, really nice. And you know, we're a couple of thousandths, or the bottom of this is a couple of thousandths below this, which is just what I want, because I'm going to put a clamp that I have a bolt down here on the bottom that tightens up on this, and that little bit of extra space in there is going to be perfect to tighten that down. So the idea with this is that, you know, we can slide this up and down on here, clamp it in place, and then have some stops that come off of this that we can then use, that the carriage will come up and bump up against, and that will be the maximum cut. So we're making good progress here. this part is pretty much ready. But I want to have 3 stops on this, and to do that I'm going to have one that's just going to be a bolt that threads into the main body here, and that will be my shortest one. Then I'm going to have 2 pieces of steel that will fold down and fold back out of the way here. So I need to mill 2 slots in here, and I need to dig around and find out what material I'm going to use to determine what size those slots those need to be. And anyway, we're going to jump on that right now, figure out what we can do, and go ahead and get those slots milled in here next. All right, moving right along on this project now. Next thing I want to do is cut some slots in here, and I've laid it out on here. I don't know if that'll show up in the video or not, but basically I'm going to cut out 2 pieces in here that are 1 inch wide, and I got a 1/2 inch on the end, a 1/2 inch in between, just whatever's left over here, and it's 1 1/4 inch deep. And this is going to be where some arms will kind of fit down inside of here that will be on a bolt that will swing out of the way when not in use, and that right there will give me my 2 other stops, and then 1 stop will be into the block itself. So to do that, I'm decided I'm just going to hog it all out right here on the horizontal mill. That is what a horizontal mill excels at, is doing real heavy hogging cuts. Anyway, we're going to do that. I looked for a 1 inch wide cutter, and the widest one I could find out here was 3/4 inches wide. This is a stagger tooth cutter, which will do pretty good. So probably what I'll do is I'll make 1 pass and then move it over an extra 1/4 inch, and we'll cut the second pass, and then repeat that for the second slot here. And anyway, this will be a fun little horizontal milling job. All right, so let's set the mill up here. First thing I'll do is wipe down the inside of my taper there, make sure it's good and clean. Same thing here. This will be the arbor that we're going to use. And we'll cinch it down the back here. About as good as it comes. I had to adjust that. I just pulled that up, tied up against the bolts, and snugged it down, and I was within a 1/2 thousandth on the first go. Let me finish tightening it down and double check it again. But that looks real good. So we've got the cutter set up. We got our part in the vise. I've already come over here and got the edge set off 1/2 inch. It's not a critical measurement, but I'm just using my scale. So we're off that shoulder 1/2 inch. And I've touched off to the top here. So we're got the cutter where it's just hitting the top of this. So now we need to feed this down. I'm on an attempt to make this entire cut in one pass. And I just realized I'm gonna have to reset my indicator here. We gotta move the table out to feed this down. So start right there. So we're just gonna raise the table up now 1 1/4 inches. So my indicator only go 1 inch, so we'll probably have to do this in 2 passes, have to readjust the indicator. So let's go up now. That's 100 thousandths, 200 thousandths, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. We're going to stop right there. We'll reset our indicator here. $900. That's 1 inch. 100 thousandths. And I need to come out a little bit more. $250. That should be 1 1/4 inches. All right. Everybody always asks about speeds and feeds. We're running at 35 RPMs on the spindle, and I've got my feed on the slowest setting right now, which is 1/2 inch per minute. And we're going to start with that and go from there. So let's just make a quick look down here. All right. Get our coolant running. All right, we're touched off there. And the table should now be feeding. So we have the first pass done now, and that had no problem at all cutting that heavy cut. I had just a little bit of a squealing noise at first, but I quickly determined it was just I didn't have enough oil on this bearing. I got oil in the reservoir, but I guess it's not dripping. So I came in here and manually oiled that bushing, and it just hogged right through that. And it's taken a pretty heavy cut. Pretty nice chip coming out of there. Got a good sharp cutter, and it was slinging chips probably, I don't know, 7-8 feet out in front of the machine as it was cutting there when it was going real hot, heavy. So let's see what we got. This was supposed to be 3/4 inch, and it's cutting about 10 thousandths over, so that's 760 thousandths. We want that to come out to be just a little over 1 inch. So I'm going to we're going to move that over about 400 and let's do 445 thousandths. No. 240 thousandths. My brain wasn't thinking there. 240 thousandths or 245 thousandths. That should give me with about 5 thousandths over, which will be good to allow those arms to swing. So I'm just going to take my indicator. All right, so we want to bring the table in 240 thousandths, 245 thousandths, 100, 245 thousandths. That should give me 5 thousandths over 1 inch. All right, so this thing is coming along real nice. I've got the body all pretty much machined out now. Probably all we're going to do for today is we'll have to come back another time and finish this up, probably later this week. But still got to make the arms that go in here. There'll be a bolt that goes through here that does pivot on, and they'll just swing out of the way. I need to drill and tap a couple of holes in the bottom to tighten up a clamp and make the clamp that goes on the bottom, and anyway, just drill and tap a couple of holes for the actual stops in this thing, and we'll have this carriage stop knocked out. So I'm very pleased with how it's turning out so far. So there we go, guys. Part 1 complete on making the carriage stop for the Lodge and Shipley lathe. And like I said, we hope to get back on this project real soon, get it finished up. Just ran out of time for today. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.